Nation. The hobby is the people. Weekly news and interviews. It's your number one source. Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
What is up? Episode 196, Sports Card Nation. Glad to be back. It's Friday. Or maybe you're listening to us on a different day. Whatever the case, hope you're doing well. Got a great show. I'm biased, truth be told, but I feel we got a great show today. Mike O, who has a YouTube channel, kind of does some video interviews himself on the YouTube channel, opens some product, reveals some of his grading subs when they come back. But the thing I like about Mike's stuff, and Mike, it's what I say about a lot of people that I like, a trait I like, right, is they give you the straight scoop. They give you their honest opinion, even if when it might be harsh or how they feel. You don't have to second guess. You don't have to read between the lines, and that sort of personifies Mike. Gives you straight scoop, his assessment, and tries to be informative and help everyone else out through his content. And I appreciate that, and asked him on, and glad he accepted. So he'll be joining the show here momentarily. So with that being said, let's not waste any more time. Let's get this party started.
It's time to start the show. Let's go. Time for our Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week.
Yo, this is the Card Carver. Remember, the hobby is the people.
If you'd like to be the Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week, do a WAV or MP3 file and send it to sportscardnationpc@gmail.com.
Are you a new sports cards collector or someone returning to the hobby? Maybe you're just looking for a friendly, trustworthy hobby community to hang out with and enjoy collecting. Midwest Box Breaks has been bringing collectors together for many years with affordable breaks, helpful threads, and a Discord group packed with generous people who genuinely care about the hobby and other collectors. Check out the breaks at MidwestBoxBreaks.com. Our goal is to bring you as much value as possible. Also, find us on Twitter at MidwestBoxBreaks.
Hey folks, John here. Just wanted to remind you, use the discount code MBB10 for 10% off your first order at MidwestBoxBreaks.com. Want to welcome my next guest to the Sports Card Shop at Moco guest line. He's a content creator in his own right. He does Hobby Talk with Mike O, and he has a YouTube channel, Mike O. I think I kind of introduced him right there. Mike O, welcome to Sports Card Nation.
Thanks for having me, John. I appreciate it.
Well, welcome. And we talk about, sometimes I get called an OG in like the podcast niche and starting in 2018, which really doesn't sound that long ago, but in podcast form, I guess it is. But you go even further back than that with your YouTube. I've seen your stuff even before. I was gonna, knew I was gonna have you on, but I didn't realize you actually started your YouTube channel. Might not have been like hobby content yet, but like 15 years ago, and then you got into the hobby content. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Probably 6 or 7 years ago, and here you are still today. I mean, 15 years. I'm trying to think if I'm not a young guy. So 15 years ago, I was 34, and I still wasn't doing YouTube. Just what was it about YouTube, and what made you then kind of go heavier, obviously, into the card side of content on your YouTube?
I mean, I think like a lot of people, I kind of would watch some YouTube here and there, like way back when it started. And then I think it was like back in college where I like uploaded a few videos, some old school projects, stuff like that. And then I don't I think I got into like the card stuff. I want to say it was like 2014, 2015, which it's like hard to believe when you start thinking like, how's that like 7 years ago? I mean, it's just like baffling to think, just like you mentioned, like 2018, all of a sudden you start thinking about it. You're like, God, that's going on 5 years ago. Like how? But time flies when you're having a good time.
Yeah.
But I somehow I was like searching and I like found stuff, people making videos about TTMs, like through the mail autograph requests and stuff like that and cards. And I started watching some and kind of binge watching some and then just randomly start doing a few breaks, just kind of for the heck of it. And then next thing you know, I found myself making mail days and stuff. And obviously things have evolved and changed dramatically since those days. Those types of videos are still around. Like people still watch mail days and box breaks and even the TTM stuff, which I have a hard time finding time for myself to do nowadays. But I mean, obviously, as you know, and people out there listen, like YouTube has exploded, as well as all social media for content creation involving sports cards. But a lot of it has moved towards talking about the hobby or, of course, the investment angle as well. So it's been around for a long time. It's not just the guys who've popped on the scene in the last year or two. It's been around for, since I was doing it 6, 7, 8 years ago, and guys before me were doing it for 5, 6, 7 years before that, which is, pretty amazing. The hobby's been around for a really, really long time. It's just, shot off to another level in recent years.
Yeah, and I give credence. I mean, it's easy for me to say kind of starting before the big boom and the craziness and the perfect storm which the pandemic created for the hobby. But I give a little more, like it or not, some people may not like me saying this, but I get a little more credence to those folks that were doing it sort of before that, right? Because it's it's like when any kind of hobby or industry kind of blows up in a good way, everyone comes out of the woodwork and is getting involved, whether it's doing a show or whatever capacity, right? That's sort of easy. But the folks that were doing it already, I just give them a little extra credit because they were putting in the work and the grind before, the huge explosion. And I think that just shorter, to me, shows kind of their mindset and what they were here sort of already. But again, the hobby is huge. There's room for everybody. I don't mean that in a besmirching way to someone who might be new. I'm a guy that welcomes folks to the hobby. I guess I'm just giving extra credit, like I said, to those that were already sort of on the ground floor and already here.
And what can be actually fun, knowing people have been around so long, every now and then, and I get it, there's so much content to consume. There's podcasts and like, I'm not huge into Instagram, but I know there's video and photo on that. And that's really, really big. And YouTube, there's, hundreds of videos per day. But every now and then take a step back and just explore some of the old school archives, whether it's, an old break or old graded reveals. Like I've been doing PSA reveals for, 6, 7 years. And you can go back and watch some of them and you see people showing off their cards that they paid $6, $7 for. And like, you'll see cards back then that was like no big deal. It's like, oh, it's like a $30, $40 card that are now, $2,000 or something crazy. Like I was looking at some old breaks I did, and now granted the quality is pretty bad. The audio is not very good, but like I'm looking at these boxes and I'm like, that box now unopened is, $500. Back then it was like $70. And then it's like, you're just rolling through like, Mookie Betts rookies, like they're no big deal. Just things like that. It can be kind of a treat, kind of funny.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I don't know if you saw the video. You're exactly right. And I think back to, it's still out there, the video of the Bowman Chrome Auto Trout and the guy, pulling it back then in 2011 before he really was Mike Trout that we know in the form he is today. And you just see him open the pack and say, oh, Mike Trout auto, no, not too exuberant. And like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, okay. And just like you said, things that cards you graded. And that works both ways, right? Like, wow, that's worth a lot more now. Do I still have it or where is it? And like some can work in the opposite way. Like it was a big card then and things have changed for that particular player's career, whatever the case may be. And it is fun to go back and look at some of that archive footage and see how things have changed. And it goes to show you, right? It's just sort of an example of like how things can change from high to low and low to high. It works. It's a two-way street.
Yeah, absolutely. Things are always evolving, in life and in this hobby for sure. What's hot, one year is maybe not necessarily hot the next year, and things go up and things go down for sure. But the one thing is you can always enjoy yourself if you're having a good time with it. Make sure you're having some fun with the hobby for sure.
Yeah, you got it, because it's supposed to be an outlet, a release. That's what hobbies are, whatever that your hobby of choice is. In our case, we're talking about sports cards here. Time to step away for one quick minute to hear from one of our great sponsors, but we'll be right back with more with Mike O. Introducing the only auction house dedicated exclusively to the cards of the 1990s. Josh Adams and John Linden have created an auction company solely for the rare, scarce, and hard-to-find inserts and parallels of the 1990s. Whether it be basketball, baseball, football, or hockey, 90s auctions will have it. Each auction will consist of smaller lots between 100 and 120 lots, so your cards won't get lost in the shuffle. Founded on the principles of fairness, honesty, and integrity, 90s auction was created by collectors for collectors. Register and consign today at 90sauctions.com. That's 90 little s auctions.com. We are back with more from Mike O. You mentioned grading. We both are, submit cards for grading. It's a big deal to both of us. Obviously, we know the last year and a half, 2 years have been crazy in that space, especially on the PSA side of things. Where I watched. Speaking of one of your reveal, you're very honest, and I love that about you. And I was watching one of your reveal videos, and you're like, I heard you like, hey, they had my cards hostage. It's been a year and a half. I got these back. I don't even remember, some of what I said. This is almost a surprise to me, and it's true. It's true. Like I was nodding my head as I'm watching your video, laughing at a couple things you said. But yet we still send cards. They had a backlog because people were, millions of people were sending in their cards. Nonetheless, it's not a secret. It wasn't a secret what was going on, and people still, obviously I know they're the leader in the space, but what do you think of this past year and a half? We'll put it at a year and a half with grading. We saw the PSA deal, then they stopped taking cards, then they raised prices. We saw SGC, who's I'm a fan. That's a fan favorite of mine. I like PSA and SGC, and they went. They got overwhelmed, and then they raised their submission prices, and we just seen some crazy stuff. We saw some new entries with HGA. Don't get me started with them. That we could do a whole show. Not a fan. I'll just give the Cliff Notes answer there. But just the grading space in the last year and a half, as someone who submits cards, buys cards, that sort of thing. Your sort of assessment of what we've seen here.
Well, it's certainly been nuts. It's been crazy, and I guess that's the way the hobby's been. That's the way, I don't know, the world's been for the last few years. So I guess it fits right in, and we get used to it. The expenses and stuff, it's frustrating with the rising costs, but that's just the way everything is. Gas is more expensive. Our hobby boxes are more expensive. The singles aren't too bad. There's some expensive singles, don't get me wrong, but I feel like comparative to the cost of grading and the cost of hobby boxes, there's still some decent deals on singles that aren't exactly tough to pull. But grading wise, I don't know, like PSA is, I used to be stuck in that narrow-minded, like PSA fanboy thought process for a while. And I was someone who only submitted with them. And I tried to I didn't necessarily only buy PSA, but I kind of would buy it more maybe often than I should have. And, I will still submit with PSA going forward over time for sure. But I am now looking at other opportunities because I mean, I get it. PSA is certainly the leader in the space for resale value and such. But there's also been, I don't know, some frustration with submitting cards. And like, I get it. There was a huge backlog in the hobby boom and everything. But when you start waiting, a year and a half for cards, and I had other orders that were like 2 years.
Yep.
I don't know. To me, like, I get it, but it's frustrating. And that's like, whether I have cards in there that I might want to sell or cards that I want back for my collection, like, just gets to a point where it's very, very frustrating. SGC, I think, has done a phenomenal job. My eyes were open to them, I don't want to say about 3 years ago. And obviously I knew they were around and I knew they were big in with pre-war and vintage and such, but I had never submitted with them. I had purchased some cards and I met them at a Philly show and talked to them and gave them a try, sent some cards, and I've continued to send with them since. And now I do some, bulk subs and stuff, some group subs. And, I love the quick turnaround time. I do wish the price would come down a little bit, but at the same time, I understand they kind of want to keep those turnarounds churning out quick. There is a major appeal for me to send cards in and get them back into the collection in, a week or two, especially if they're bigger cards. And I understand they want to keep their quality up a little more, but would love to see a little bit of a price reduction. And CSG, I think they had some missteps starting out when they jumped onto the scene. Now, they have a lot of money backing them, and I think they'll be around for a while. I think they had a misstep with going with the Beckett scale, and I think they had a misstep with their label. I didn't hate their old label, but I didn't love it. Obviously, as a whole, the hobby highly disliked it. The new one is much improved. I think they've picked up steam a little bit, but obviously the resale market's not great. But I've enjoyed sending some stuff to them as well. HGA, I did give them a try because I like to be fair and give everyone a try. Yeah. And the cards I sent them, I actually thought they graded accurately, but I'll just say I would never send them a really expensive card, nor would I ever send them something really old and have strong confidence in it actually being authenticated. So I kind of have my thoughts probably somewhat similar to yours there. So, I think clearly grading is not a fad that some people thought it might be 20 years ago. It's here to stay in a big way. People are addicted to it, and it's a necessity of the hobby nowadays.
No doubt. It is in this. I'm glad you said that, Mike, because, and there are people that doesn't make, some people don't like grading. Some people won't submit. Some people won't buy graded cards, and that's fine and dandy. But even those folks, when it comes to, we're seeing all these trim cards and Fugazis and fakes, and especially on the vintage side, which I love and I know you're very fond of. It's very important when it comes to grading. And I'm almost at a point, one of my PCs are, Hall of Fame graded rookies. And most of those, I really don't want to buy ungraded. And, I know there's been missteps even with trim cards, getting slabbed and slipping through the cracks. I'm not going to give anyone a free pass, but, 99% of the time or somewhere in that high 90s, they're getting it right. And so for me, who wants to buy, a graded Hall of Fame rookie, over a raw one, I mean, that when it comes to authenticity and that the fact that it's not altered and that sort of thing, it serves a huge purpose. And, if you're not a grading person or collector, nothing wrong with that. But it's on the flip side of those of us like us two that do it, nothing wrong with that as well. We've seen a ton of new upstarts, Mike, too many to even list by name, trying to, throw their hat in the arena and compete. Most people would say there's the big four with PSA, SGC, Beckett, and CSG. Most people would agree Beckett's probably lost the most traction where SGC has gained the most traction. But going back to these new upstart grading companies, do you think there's any way one of them can move into that top four without necessarily one of those four grading companies that we consider the top four literally doing something heinous where they shoot themselves in the foot?
I mean, obviously, there's always a chance for things to move around, right? Because Beckett definitely, by many, was considered maybe even the top grading company at one time. Certainly top two. Like it looked like it was a lock, 1, 2. And over the years, things have evolved and changed. I mean, from my perspective, I would rank it PSA, SGC, probably CSG than Beckett, just based on what I see and the amount of cards being graded. Now, Beckett, you can make a case because of resale value would be ahead of CSG, but they just seem to kind of are becoming irrelevant, and maybe that'll change. Maybe I know they have some changes going on there, so maybe they get a boost going, but I think it's going to be really hard for some of these newer companies to pop in. I know there's a few that are trying to do some promotion and such. I mean, I think we're going to have to see. It's going to take a lot because you have to look at it. Beckett's been around decades, SGC decades, PSA obviously decades. Like they've been around a really long time, so they have that long history. They have those fans, and then CSG has obviously been in the grading space. Maybe not necessarily sports cards, but they've been around a really long time. They're a big company. They have tons and tons of money behind them. So, I mean, it would take years of being really, really good and probably just doing enough to maybe get bought out, in my opinion, to see them rise into that top 4, unless there's mergers up top. But I have a hard time seeing that. I mean, how much money is there to go around, for all these companies? You have places like GMA who have, been around for a really long time, for those budget collectors, people who literally just want their cards slabbed. So like, there are spaces for other companies, but in terms of gaining that reputation, it's going to be really difficult, in my opinion.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I think I couldn't really. I agree with you pretty much across the board there. Nothing even to really debate you on, because we're waving the same pennant exactly there. So
time to hear from one of our great sponsors, but Sports Card Nation will be right back after that.
Like the athletes we admire, the Sports Card Shop is changing the game. We're not launching threes, bombing drives, or hitting dingers, but we have built a unique gathering spot for all collectors to trade cards, talk sports, play games, and watch their favorite athletes on the big screens. Yes, we've partnered with Panini, Upper Deck, Leaf, Topps, Fanatics, Pokemon, and others to bring you all the latest in sealed wax and singles. But the Sports Card Shop in New Buffalo, Michigan is much, much more. Our recent expansion brings collectible sneakers, Hot Wheels, and more sports and entertainment memorabilia into the mix. Our new Collector's Cave game room is the perfect place to throw a rip party, bring friends, rip packs, trade cards, play billiards, ping pong, shuffleboard, classic arcade, and Xbox games, all while watching your favorite sport on TV. Visit us at thesportscardshop.com. Follow us on social @_sportscardshop, or better yet, visit us in person to learn about special events, party packages, new products, and everything we're doing for you. The Sports Card Shop, connecting people, sports, and the hobby around the world.
Let's go! You are listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast.
let's talk a little bit about the National. We're only 4 or 5 weeks out from it's taking place. I know you were there. I was there. I heard you say, your dad got to attend his first National, which I got to think's a pretty cool moment to share, the National with your dad for his first time. Collecting wise, are you sort of on par, or are you more of a collector than your father?
He likes cards. I don't think he necessarily consumes content about sports cards, hours upon hours every day, and does stuff with cards, absolutely a daily basis. He loves to break wax. He likes to open the stuff, have a good time with it. He will get into things. Like, I'll show him a product, and then next thing I know, he'll be like calling me up being like, I went on eBay. I was looking at these, whatever, refractors or autographs. I mean, he typically kind of will pick up some Phillies stuff, similar stuff that I collect. He's got a lot of Hank Aaron cards. Yeah. I kept trying to convince him to buy the rookie a few years ago, and he didn't do it. And that card has obviously exploded quite a bit, but, it was definitely fun to be able to share some time with him at the National. He only was able to get there that one day, Sunday. So I actually I was in Atlantic City. I drove about an hour and a half to pick him up early in the morning, and then drove back for the beginning of the show that morning. So spent some time there Sunday. So that was definitely cool. The plan was obviously to do that in 2020, but that National did not end up happening. So that was a good thing about Atlantic City. It's not far from me at all.
Yeah, it was drivable for me, Mike, in Syracuse, 4.5 hours. I'm not going to lie. I like that. A lot of people didn't have warm things to say about the venue or the city. More the city, I think, than the venue. I heard your sort of post-national wrap-up, which I enjoyed. And I like that, you were pretty positive about it. Like, listen, no matter what national and where it is, we can complain about something, right? But it's still the National. It's still, if you're not having fun at the National, you're doing something wrong. I know the internet. Let's not sugarcoat it, right? It sucked. But you can do some of that pre-work, when it comes to pricing stuff, even before you get into the building. I'm not, giving anybody a pass necessarily, but it's a two-way street too. Just if you want to, for those that may not have heard your sort of take on your show, if you want to piggyback off what I said there.
Yeah, I have T-Mobile, so my internet service wasn't horrible. We'd go out a few times, but it was generally not too bad compared to what most had. The problem was communicating, because I would send messages to some, the dozens of people I knew who were at the show, and I would never get a response. And at first I was like, man, everyone's so busy. And then I'd find out later, I didn't get your message till 2 days later. So, there's issues in Atlantic City. They had the National there in 2016, I believe.
Yep.
The town has absolutely gone downhill to a noticeable degree in those 6 years. There's no doubt about it. But I mean, its location, it was obviously the National, I believe, got a solid deal to do it. And it's kind of that in between New York, Philadelphia, two major markets, two major hobby markets. It's East Coast. Like, you're going to have some East Coast Nationals, not the East Coast National, but a national on the East Coast. That's where a large portion of these dealers are from the East Coast. I agree with a lot of people. Chicago's setup, from a pure setup in terms of where the majority of the hotels are and the convention center, is the best setup. But for most people, it's the center of the country. That's great for those in the center of the country. But for everyone else, you're still traveling, a few hours by plane, most likely. And if you're driving, you're looking at anywhere from 12 to 15 hours. So, unless the National is perfect for you individually, you're never gonna have a perfect National. But the thing is, to me, I thought the center itself was pretty good outside of the issues with the internet. I thought the setup was fantastic. It was huge. The corporate area was tremendous. It was large. It was huge. Like, I got there Wednesday night. It took me Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday to see the entire show, because I'm someone who does I look for a lot of specific things. I like to look at every table. I'm not going through every box and looking at every card and every showcase, but that's how big that National was. To do a somewhat thorough walk by of every table took days. I had a lot of fun, and all the get-togethers put together by everyone was tremendous. It's hard to meet up with everyone. With the hobby explosion and the explosion of content, there's more and more people there. So, I ran into so many people. I mean, you could give me a piece of paper, I could probably fill out, 100 names, but it would take forever, and I would forget so many. But I mean, the National's a blast. There's a reason people look forward to it, and there's a reason most people, once they go, try and get there as often as they can. Not everyone's going to be able to make every National. Of course, you have so many other things going on in life and expenses and such. But to me, I mean, it was awesome. It always is. And they're things you're always going to remember. And then going back and watching content on them is always fun too. Just years later, just going back, having a good time. So, I thought it was a positive experience overall for sure.
Yeah, no doubt, Mike. I mean, you can, things happen at any kind of event, but if you're passionate and love the hobby, and you go to a national and you didn't have funds, I don't know why, and I don't know what to tell you. There's
and it's
just so many things to do and see. You mentioned about the hobby community, just meeting people for the first time, meeting people again that you met before, and so when I really haven't heard anyone trash. I heard more. I will say this: I heard more vitriol towards Atlantic City before the event, like, I'm not going, but yet, like, it was still packed. So, like, I think a lot of people postured like, I'm not going. And then, FOMO set in and they bought their plane ticket, got a hotel room, and were there. I think, like you said, once you go to one, you don't really want to miss one if you can avoid missing one. So I think a lot of people postured like, man, it's the worst venue. It's the worst national. I'm going to skip this one. I'll see you in Chicago. I think, maybe not all of them, but maybe 75% of those people that said that wound up being in Atlantic City nonetheless. So I think there was more like pre-show sort of, bad, trash talk than afterwards.
Yeah, and there's, obviously there's an expense in traveling and getting to the show, but once you're at the show, like, there's something for everyone. If you like wax, there's plenty of wax. Yeah. And there were a lot of good deals on wax. I saw current blasters later in the show being marked down to like $12, $13. Obviously well below that $20, retail price. Some solid deals. Obviously some wax that's unaffordable, and that's just the way it is. But I mean, like, I have a good time buying everything. I bought a few cards that cost me a few $100s, and I bought quite a few cards that cost me 50 cents and $1. Like, I kind of check it all out. Yeah. So there's obviously plenty there for all types of collectors. And, there's opportunity to sell stuff there too. I always kind of bring some things with me that I can either trade or sell. And that way you have a few extra dollars to add some cool stuff to your collection that you might not be able to find at, your everyday show or even online sometimes.
Yeah, no doubt. And for both of us being the drivable, that's let's be real. It's a game changer. I heard you talk about it, I've talked about it on this show. You can take more when you're not traveling by plane, obviously, in driving than you would on a plane. When I fly, like if it's Chicago, I'm a one bag guy, so I have to really, be strategic about my bag. My wife even showed me a trick how to roll your clothes so you can actually get more stuff in your luggage, in your suitcase, and that helped me out. But when you're driving, you don't have to worry about rolling all your shirts and shorts and pants, and you can bring obviously more. So for us, this year we were spoiled. We got to drive. Won't be no such luck for, at least for me, for Chicago. That'll be air flight, an airplane or bus. So I'm going to try to be there just the same. Like you said, once you go to these, you're hooked, and you don't want to miss one unless you really have no choice as the last resort.
Someone's at my door. I've got to get that. Be right back.
Hey everybody, have you heard about Collectible? It's the one-stop shop where any collector can buy and trade affordable shares in some of the most rare and valuable sports cards and memorabilia in the world, starting from just $5. From 1952 Mickey Mantle PSA 10s in Wilt Chamberlain's iconic rookie uniform to one-of-one Patrick Mahomes RPAs, rare LeBron James logo mans, and everything in between, Collectible is creating never-before-seen access and opportunities for all. Let's grow the hobby we love together. Please note this is not a recommendation or solicitation to buy any security. All investment decisions should be undertaken after doing your own research.
Thanks for sticking with us. Let's return to the show.
If you have a chance to drive to a national, I certainly recommend it. It is, even if you have that 4 or 5 hour drive, it's certainly worth it. I drove to Cleveland a few years ago. I think that was a 7-hour ride. Yeah. Do I want to drive 7 hours? Not really, but was it worth it to kind of have that ability to bring whatever I wanted? Back then, I remember buying this bring in this giant box filled with blaster boxes that I had picked up over a few months' time. I mean, that's back when you could get whatever you wanted at retail.
Yeah.
And I remember breaking them with a bunch of guys, at the bar and stuff, hanging out. It's the YouTube kind of get-togethers and stuff.
Yeah.
And then just having that peace of mind to be able to kind of pick up whatever I wanted. If I wanted to buy something in bulk, if I wanted to buy something big, I could do that. But like you, Chicago's pretty much a fly only unless I had some really big reason to drive there, which typically I'm just going to take that 2 or 3 hour flight rather than that 15, 16 hour drive for sure. And then you definitely have to sit there and be like, all right, what am I going to bring with me? And then on the way back, hey, I bought too many cards. I guess choices have to be made. Do I ship something or do I just leave some of these clothes behind, Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I'll get rid of a couple of these free T-shirts and make sure I get my cards back there. But yeah, all good problems in a way to have. I want to touch base. It's something in the hobby we don't always talk about, right? The Montgomery 582 Club. You're part of that. I'm part of that. It's been very fruitful to me, whether it's me opening some of those exclusive offerings or, truth be told, selling some of those on the secondary market. This past year, obviously, we've seen the membership price go up, even for us existing members. And we've even seen, some of the exclusive products we had offered, those prices go up, including on repeat products. They went up from the price they were before, almost across the board. And I got a feeling, Mike, we're going to see that when it's time for renewal. We may see a 500, maybe even, and I hope I'm wrong. Believe me, I hope I'm wrong. But we may see a $500, $600 membership price. And then I think along with that, we may see if you renew at that price, I think you might even see some of these exclusive offerings be at a price where they're not such great deals any longer. And I think we're going to be sort of faced with, like, do I join this year? Do I keep my membership? And if that's the route they continue, which they've rolled, they raised both of those prices this year. Something tells me they're going to try it again. I mean, your thoughts on that, and what's the point of no return? Do you have one as someone who enjoys the club? Do you say, like, as much as I want to be in this club, like at this price point, it doesn't make sense for me.
Well, I certainly think if things get too crazy, that's where you have to make a choice. It's definitely, a few years ago, it was amazing. It was great. This year, maybe not as great because, like you said, costs go up, specifically the products. Also, the product limits are a little tighter now. It used to be you could get 3-4 boxes. I mean, now a lot of the products are limit 1, and then when in the past it would be limit 1 or 3 or whatever, and then when it would go on sale to the public, you could buy some as well. Now there've been some products where you could only buy that one through the Montgomery Club, and then you weren't even able to get one when it was on sale to the public. It counted against your limit of 1. I mean, it's still, don't get me wrong, it's still great to have first access and to be able to get the product, but you're paying for the club itself for that opportunity, but you are getting those sets that come out. I think they release 5 or 6 of them. You get the full factory set. So you are getting some value with that as well. I don't know if you got your autograph for the latest set yet. I did see someone on Twitter got Julio Rodriguez. I was not so fortunate.
Me either. Here, it's funny. I happen to have it near me. I want to say, John Duran, the Twins rookie pitcher. So I think I Julio.
I got William Contreras, I guess. So I mean, like an all-star player, but I didn't look it up. I'm assuming it's like a $10 card. No Julio for me or you. But you do get those sets. So like there'll be some cards in there that I'll keep for the collection. There's others that I'll just sell. They don't go for a ton, but you're getting a few bucks back. And that set, of course, with the stamp, it does have some value, but the product offerings, I think this year, to me, you've gotten less that you've been able to purchase with each product. And the prices, like you said, are very high. And in some cases, like that Star Wars Sapphire, I don't remember exactly what it was, if it was $200-$300, but obviously like it was going for like $600, $700, $800 at one point.
Yeah.
But, next year when they release that, they're going to bump that price up to $500 or $600 probably, because they've done that with the Sapphire baseball products over the years. And it hasn't been very consistent. I would like to see them do one release every month or two releases every month. It seems like lately it's like nothing for 2 months. You're like, wait, is the club still active? And then all of a sudden it's like 3-4 releases in a week and a half. I'm like, what is going on?
They needed to fill the coffers back up. They're like, hey, let's get these things rolling. Yeah, it's. I hope I'm wrong too, Mike, with some of these increases. I hope they don't do that and make the decision easier for us and keep it at that same price level, or maybe raise it for anyone new that wants to come in. But I got a feeling that's not going to be the case, and then we'll have to make that decision, like whether we want to pull the trigger, whether it's it's still worth it to us. Everyone is different. I can only speak for myself, but I will say this: one thing I've tried to do is, especially on some of those first and second year Montgomery sets that were exclusive to Montgomery Club members, I've been trying to pick some of those off on the secondary market, eBays and other platforms that have went kind of cheap, because I think those are going to be, in terms of production, there were less people in the club the first and second years. So, some of those sets, especially rookie card driven, might be kind of sleepers. You got to sit on them and wait, but years from now, I think some other people are going to go back and try to get them. And I've tried to get some of those, that were at decent price level and just sock them away. Do you feel that at all with maybe the first or second year where there were less members? You see that as an angle you can take?
Yeah, there's no doubt that like hardcore, it depends on the player, right? It depends on how well the player performs. Yep. But you look, at certain cards, we're in the age of people being infatuated with the pop counts. Oh my goodness, the pop counts 1,000, the pop counts 2,000. Like some of these sets, like what's the pop count going to be? Because they might have only produced a few hundred. They're going to be pretty low. And you actually see that sometimes with like certain Topps Now cards. Generally speaking, Topps Now doesn't have like a huge secondary market price, but there are some cards, if it turns out to be a key card or a key player where the print run's only a couple hundred, and next thing you know, like they're just not available. They're in collections. There's a few there's this player that no one listening, I shouldn't say no one, but most people aren't going to know. And it's not a rookie card, but it's Ty Kelly. He was on the Phillies for a couple weeks. He had a walk-off hit. He had a card produced, a Topps Now card. It was his only Phillies card ever produced. The print run was like 210. Every one of those cards is in a Phillies collector's collection, maybe part of a set. They don't come up. I sent one off to my one buddy for consignment, and I told him to put it up for $50. He's like, what are you, nuts? Like, this guy is like, he's like a guy who had like 25 big league at bats. I'm like, I guarantee it sells in a week or two. Within a week, sold, because it's just not available. And I can see that happening with some of the Montgomery Club, and not even just the rookies, but maybe even some of the Hall of Famers, like the truly popular Ken Griffey Jr. I mean, I know he has thousands upon thousands of cards, but people enjoy collecting that stuff. So, I mean, if you can find those Juan Sotos, Ronald Acuñas, those guys who, take it to the next level, hey, those are rookie cards you're not going to see every day. I mean, at some point, most collectors are going to have the Topps. They're going to have the Topps Chrome. They're going to have the Bowman. They might not have those Montgomery Club ones, so.
Yeah, and you got to remember these Montgomery Club cards we're talking about, you can't pull them out of a pack. You can't buy a wax box, a blaster box, or even a couple packs and rip them open. You've got to purchase them from someone who's either broken the set or selling the whole set. You might be buying it for one or two cards, but you might have to buy the whole set to get to them. So I think when you add in all those factors, I think there's going to be some sleeper value there, especially in the first couple years of Montgomery Club club membership cards and sets. So I picked up a few. I think the second year sticker set they did. I picked up 3 or 4 of those. Again, $10-$20 somewhere in that range. If they're worth more, great. If they're not, I took a flyer. It's like a scratch off, right? Sometimes every once in a while you win on those, and sometimes you lose. But that's sometimes how my mind sort of works. So
either way, you have some unique
Yeah.
cards that not maybe everyone has something cool to flip through and look at, or there's always a market for unique cards.
Time for a quick break, but we'll be right back.
Zion cases are the best card cases in the hobby. One quick walk around the National or even your local card show will bear that out. Whether it's a case to protect your one single Grail card or to hold and protect many of your precious cards, look no further than the Zion cases. And don't forget, our backpack cases have no equal. Check us out at www.zioncases.com and remember to use promo code SCN10 to save an additional 10% off your order. Zion Cases. We protect the hobby.
We are back.
Those things, those kind of, maybe they're the future oddball cards, right? You don't get cards, nowadays in cereal boxes or Cracker Jack boxes or any of that stuff. But you have the Montgomery Club sets, like those little offshoot sets. There's collectors of everything for sure.
Yeah, it's a great point by you. We don't have those obscure food sets like we used to have in the 70s and 80s and even before that. The Montgomery Club sets might be sort of our modern day version of those, or the closest thing to them. One final question to kind of finish our conversation. Fanatics has come into the space in a big way. Now, they haven't really made their presence completely felt until the licensing really kicks in on obviously baseball, football, and basketball. I've always said I'm a little leery anytime someone has that big of a club and that big of an influence. It's not a monopoly, but fairly close to it. I'm a little leery. I'm concerned. I don't want to say worried, but maybe the better word is concerned. We're seeing, there's going to be plenty of product and lids. Someone I read on social media the other day, I forgot what store it was. It was a store you wouldn't expect to see packs of cards, and they said they went in and there was a lot of packs of cards. So I'm a little concerned, what Fanatics' approach is going to be and what kind of effect it might have long term. Now, that being said, Mike, I'm still going to, I'm not leaving. I'm still going to enjoy the hobby the way I do, which is, truthfully, I do. I'm really, really, I've always done vintage, but I'm really heavy vintage now. So frankly, what Fanatics does will probably have a minimum effect. I'm thinking of more of for the hobby in general, right? And, your thoughts on Fanatics' role here in the years going forward.
Well, it's going to be interesting. I would like to see how things evolve. I don't really know what to expect. It's been kind of a roller coaster since all this news started to break for me. Like, I remember seeing like the text or whatever, like the breaking news, like when they first got the licensing and I like felt like like a pit in my stomach. I'm like, what? Like, Topps loses license? Like, because I love that continuity with the vintage stuff.
Yeah.
The fact that we've had those consistent flagship sets for 70 years, I think that's amazing. And like you, I like to do a lot of vintage, and I've gotten like really into the pre-war stuff a lot in recent years as well. But I also still really enjoy the new stuff. Like, I look forward to Topps flagship every year. I look forward to certain sets that have been going on for forever. I do like to collect it all. The Fanatics thing, I don't know exactly what to expect. Obviously, they do a really good job of promoting stuff, and they like to target those certain brands, and obviously they make money. They've done an incredible job over the years. So exposure for the hobby, I think they'll help provide some of that, both in their online store and some of these other retail outlets they're involved in. And I mean, they have had, I haven't been to a lot of Major League Baseball games in the last couple of years. During the pandemic, I've been to a couple, but even before that, down at the Phillies ballpark in Philadelphia, they always had some cards, like Topps opening day, maybe some flagship. I know last year they had a few others. So like they were available at the ballparks. Maybe not as much as you'd like to see, but I think Fanatics will bring that to the different, arenas and stuff like that. Like I do think they'll provide exposure, but I don't know. I do think certain products they are going to print a lot of. I think we might not hit that, top of the junk wax era, but print runs are going to be very, very high for certain products, which is going to kill, values to a degree. But at the same time, if people are having fun being exposed to the hobby and there are limited products, it is what it is. But that unknown is always unsettling. And like you said, you're leery of it. And I kind of feel the same way because you hear like, oh, we want to revolutionize, these selling platforms and this platform and make this one stop. I'm like, as a longtime hobbyist, like I don't need a one stop. Like I like to have the ability to buy some stuff, direct from you guys online, but like I don't need to buy something, have it broken by someone remotely, and then have stuff graded immediately. Like I don't want my cards stored in vaults. Like that stuff doesn't personally interest me. So we'll see. I mean, listen, there's going to be some positive aspects if they start making some Topps branded products with football and some stuff like that, bringing some of that back. Like I would look forward to that personally, but we don't know for sure that that's going to happen. So it's not a perfect situation. I mean, part of me would like to go old school where we have Topps and Upper Deck and Donruss. Like, I don't really want 100 products, but I would like a few select products over various brands. So we get a mix of players and we get that competition for some high quality inserts. But I think we both agree that those days are days of the past for sure. So hopefully they, are innovative. Hopefully they keep around some long-standing brands. Hopefully they improve, some others, come up with some fresh new ideas and do a good job. But only time is going to tell. I think it'll be a few years ultimately before we see, the full effect of what it is.
Yeah, no doubt. Like you said, time will tell. Remains to be seen. I'll sometimes I'll say leery. Sometimes I'll say cautiously optimistic. Certain days I'm even really concerned. So I guess it depends on what day of the week I answer that kind of question. But we're just along for the ride. We're going to have to watch what happens and form our own opinions when those things occur. But
do you ever shop with Fanatics, like on Fanatics website? Have you ever done any of that or not really?
No, not to, I think I bought like a Fanatics release of wax. They do that through sometimes, like whether it be Panini's or even before the acquisition of Topps, they would do sometimes that maybe with Topps that way. But no, I've never directly, bought. The closest I've ever bought anything from Fanatics, Mike, is when before all this acquisition started a couple years. They're always at the Nationals with their jersey racks and stuff, and I bought a couple $15 towards the end of the show blowout jerseys. That's the closest I've really direct I bought something from Fanatics in that capacity. So.
Yeah, because price is kind of a concern of mine too, because like I see they're connected with different websites. I mean, now I think if you go to a team's website, it like is basically it's powered by Fanatics. Yeah. And I've never, when I've gone on there, and even, I've been on there a lot now since the news broke, and I just kind of pop around and look at stuff, and like I don't find their prices all that cheap, whether it's memorabilia or it's even just like sweatshirts and jerseys. Because I've heard a lot of people say, oh, well, you get rid of all these, all these different people bumping up the prices and such. And I'm like, I don't necessarily think that. I think that's just more money for Fanatics in the future. I don't think they're going to go, you know what? We were selling this box for $100 and they were marking it up to 120 and someone else was marking up to 200. I think they're just going to price it at about 200 and just take that extra cash.
Yeah,
so
they want to cut out the middleman. They pretty much have. That's been their sort of modus operandi.
But really, I think they want to do that for their own pockets. I don't think they want to do it to be like, I'm going to save you hobbyist $80 a box. I don't see that as being the way that it works. So
yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that's exactly what, and that's not necessarily good, right? And but I guess as consumers, we have the power to either buy it or not buy it, whatever we choose to do. So. We'll see. We'll see what happens. It definitely is going to be interesting to see. We may not like everything we see, but it'll be interesting to see what comes down the pike. Well, Mike, I appreciate you giving the show some time and your insights. For those listening, where can they find your YouTube channel? Share any other social medias you want to share? Go right ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, John. It was a pleasure to be on the show. YouTube is pretty easy to find. Just go to YouTube, type in Mike O. Very, very easy. Something should pop up. I post videos as often as I can. I try and do some diverse stuff. I do SGC reveals and PSA reveals when they finally trickle in. Mail days, pretty much every week I will do just random stuff out of the collection I'll show off. I try and do some stuff with guests. I do a podcast on occasion, would like to get them out a little more often. Hobby Talk with Mike O. I've been probably releasing episodes of that for about 5 years, but they're just few and far between sometimes. I'm on Twitter, Mike Orzakowski. That might be a little more difficult to find, and Instagram, Mike Orz111. But I'm more of someone who pops on occasion. YouTube's really my go-to area in terms of social media. I love to just watch and support as many fellow content creators as possible. Some of these guys I've known for 6, 7, 8 years. Other guys, I've just discovered in the last few weeks, and I'm always hitting that watch later button and watching new stuff and going back and watching old stuff. It's a lot of fun, and to me, it enhances the hobby experience. You build relationships in this hobby. You kind of connect with people that enhances your own enjoyment of this hobby. I mean, the hobby's great. It's fun. It's an escape from the reality of the real world. But having that ability to share it with others is an amazing experience. I get to share it at times with my dad. He likes to collect as well. He we'll break boxes together, go to shows together once in a while. And, I'll connect with people not only at the national, but at some of the other regional shows, the Philly show and some others, and meet up with a group of people who are, I met through YouTube, and now, I know them outside of YouTube, but it's a great space to learn and to get some enjoyment and relaxation out of. So I welcome all who, maybe haven't given YouTube a lot of time to, check it out. It's a good time. You can check stuff out, and you can even watch this podcast on YouTube as well.
There you go. Couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah, and even myself, I'm trying to do a little bit more than I traditionally do on the YouTube side. So, but I usually it's just showing some cards. I like to keep my face off it because I like I always say, I have more of a face for radio than video. But it's a great time. There's plenty of content, and check out Mike O's channel for sure. He does a great job with what he does. So, Mike, once again, thanks again.
Appreciate it.
I want to thank Mike for giving some time to the show. We're going to take one last real quick break, and when we come back, I'll give some closing thoughts. Don't go away.
Iron Sports Cards is your #1 source for all your PSA and other grading submissions. Their elite status improves turnaround times. Heck, they even provide the card savers. Their chat rooms provide updates on all your submissions. They also offer wax options and single cards to cover all the bases. Check them out on Facebook at Iron Sports Cards Group or on the web at ironsportscards.com. Or even give them a call at 1-877-IRON-PSA. Rob's got you covered.
Well, there you go. Another edition of Sports Card Nation in the books. 196 episodes. I mean, when I think about that, sometimes it's, if I didn't know any better, it's hard to believe. It's a weekly show. It's always been. And so, as we approach 200 episodes, I'm humbled by everyone who listens to the show and No matter how many times I see those numbers, I don't take them for granted. Not one day, not 1 week, and I appreciate it. And there is no Sports Card Nation. You are Sports Card Nation. Don't ever forget that. I'm not going to let you forget that. I want to thank Mike O for coming on the show and giving it like he sees it, calls it like he sees it, and I love call it like you see it kind of guys, and he fits that bill for sure. All right, little shameless plug for Monday's Hobby Quick Hits. Had a lot of fun putting it together. It's one of our hobby history episodes where we learn about someone who's no longer with us that had a very important and pivotal role in the hobby. And, recently with that 9.5 SGC mantle, his name has been kind of brought back up as it should. Mr. Mint, Alan Rosen, will be the subject of Monday's Hobby Quick Hits. And like I said, I tried to include a lot of stuff that you probably didn't know about him. And dug deep, got some help, and I think you're going to enjoy that show if you hear it. So Monday, we're going to deep dive Mr. Mint, Alan Rosen. Who was he? What was he before he was in the cards? What did he bring to the hobby? Why was he disliked so? Why was he liked so? We're really going to cover, or try to cover, all the bases there. So if you can, check that episode out for sure. With that being said, I'm going to wish you well. Stay safe. We'll see you soon.